Thanks to Daniel, Florence and Roman for this energetic ignitions. The countdown that have started more than 1 year ago, leading to the organizations of different regional conferences that will feed this general and this final conferences of Development Pact, and also that allowed the development of this multi-actor approach till this final conference. But we will see this all along the day. But before to leave the floor to Jean-Pierre Goffard, I will ask also to the different contributors to the sessions, one session after the other, to come in front in order to lose as much time as possible during the transition, because our main enemy, as I already underlined to my colleagues, will be the time today, because it's a very rich program, but we have to face this. And so I will not be much longer, I only will let the floor to Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre is an agronomical research scientist, a doctor, and that for more than 35 years developed some applied research as crop agronomist and crop physiologist on potato, cereal, maize, sugar beet and vegetable crops in connections with different value chain stakeholders. And since 2016, he assumed the position of Deputy General Director of our Walloon Agricultural Research Center. Jean-Pierre, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Didier, for these opening words and to give me the possibilities and the honor to open this very important and final conference, of course, for this project. So, dear Scientific Director of INRAE, Mr. Christian Huyghe, also dear Head of Unit Research, she is there, and Innovation, DG Agriculture and Rural Development, Mrs. Kerstin Rosenau. Dear farmers and value chain representative, you are very important stakeholders of this project, dear associations representative and also research institute representatives, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final conference of the Diver Impact Project. This conference aiming to support the agroecological transition of European agri-food systems while mobilizing the lever offered by cropping system diversification. This is a summary, but I would like to develop a little bit. The need for transition of agri-food system with the adoption of more sustainable practices has become progressively one evidence during the last decades. Indeed, given the increasing world population, also the environmental and climatic challenges, and the growing scarcity of water and fossil fuel resources, one adaptation or even a complete rupture in regard to current agricultural production methods has become unavoidable. Agricultural system will have now to be designed not only to produce agricultural food, but also to provide other ecosystem services. We can say that historically and classically, since the 1950s, there were several main drivers of agriculture and agri-food systems in our industrialized temperate zone countries. And I will cite some of them. Firstly, the improvement in productivity and economic competitiveness, together with the modernization of process, the specialization of production system, and the alteration or even the homogenization of environment were important drivers. Expansion of farms and increased reliance on synthetic inputs for main crops were also very important in their effect. Also expansion of agricultural machinery and crop plant varieties and animal breeds with high productive potential were also very important drivers. Other important drivers should also be cited: the production and the agri-food processing to more standardized food products that better match the needs of processing sector and agri-food industries, Also, the advice provided to farmers aiming always to optimize crop and animal production. And finally, the industrialized agriculture, generating externalities that were considered to be positive, such as sanitized environment, without pests and with high productivity. This was a situation. But during the same period, in such a context, we must recognize that agriculture-friendly biotic interactions in the soil and the ecosystem were ignored, together with the emerging negative externalities such as soil or water or air pollution and, of course, biodiversity loss, leading finally to critical and unsustainable situations. Fortunately, in the meantime, during last decades, a better compromise between agriculture and the environment has been developed by improving the inputs use efficiency, by decreasing discharge of waste into the environment, and even by completely redesigning agricultural system. And so several references such as organic farming, conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture or rezoned agriculture have proposed terms and new concepts to better combine and reconcile the economic, social, environmental and heat performance of our agriculture and our agri-food system. But now is coming the Diver Impact project. And it's now time to go further and to contribute to the development of a still more sustainable and resilient agriculture and agri-food system in Europe, while of course maintaining the access of quality and affordable food to everyone. A way to success is to consider the potentialities of crop and cropping system diversification. It also requests to identify and manage the trade-off, the barriers and the lock-in in limiting the uptake of crop diversification. And this was the main goal, I think, of the Diver Impact project, while mobilizing intervention research and interaction with a 25 multi-actors dynamic. But we also need to consider that the current situation in Europe, due to Ukrainian crisis, adds a new constraint and challenge, with a need to maintain our yield, but also while mitigating climate change and limiting our environmental impact, a large challenge. If managed in a smart way, while taking into account local biophysical and socio-economic context, cropping system diversification should likely and significantly, I think, contribute to the resolution of this challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, this final conference aims to firstly highlight how cropping system diversification can be a key lever to support agroecological transition, and secondly, explore the way to achieve diversified agri-food system, to reach firstly always improved productivity, but also to delivery of ecosystem services, including water quality, pest and disease control, and soil quality. And also, finally, to reach resource-efficient and sustainable value chains, as well as more integrated socio-technical systems, facilitating co-innovation across research and development, education, advisory, business, and finally, policy sectors. On behalf of the Walloon Agricultural Research Centre, I would like really to thank all the partners of the Diver Impact project for their commitment to this fruitful and collaborative research. With my colleague, we also thank the European Commission for their funding, their support all along the project, and their involvement in this final conference that is finally a very important milestone in the development of more sustainable agri-food system. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizer, I wish you a fruitful final conference day. Thank you for your attention.
And will be followed by the welcome word of Ms. Kerstin Rosenau, that is the head of the Unit Research and Innovation at the General Directions of Agriculture and Development of the European Commission. But this will be done by Visio. And so now, Ms. Rosenau, the floor is yours. Sylvain will manage the technical system.
Yes. Hello, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very fine.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot. So it's a great pleasure to be with here on this final conference of Diver Impacts. So I was quite impressed by seeing one of my first physical meetings, people in a room without masks, even making gymnastics together to warm up in the morning. So I think that in itself is an achievement and a very good way to finalize the work that you've done, and on which I'm going to say a couple of words this morning. So it's been said, the transition towards sustainable food systems, so we're all working on, is now more important than ever, considering global sustainability challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, or land degradation. And this is also why at European level, the Green Deal clearly puts climate and environmental challenges at the forefront of the Commission's ambitions, proposing a set of really deep transformation and transformative policies that will also have an impact on our food and farming sectors. So with the farm to fork related actions and the biodiversity actions that we propose, we aim to significantly reduce the use and the risk of chemical plant production products, as well as the use of antibiotics and the loss of nutrients, while increasing the area of organic farming. And all of this in a timeline which is more than challenging. So it's basically 8 growing seasons away, and the current challenges of geopolitical nature and other that we have ahead will not necessarily make that less challenging, but on the contrary. We must consider the current crisis following the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine that has further destabilized the already fragile agricultural markets. And for instance, the surge in synthetic fertilizer prices adds already significant pressure on top of the ones that European farmers already face. So the dependency on such energy-intensive inputs, for instance, have shown once more that we need a holistic and environmentally sustainable production system and systems, such as agroecology, that optimize the nutrient cycles and strengthen the resilience of the agricultural sector. This is also key to ensure the strategic autonomy of our food supply. Your project, Diver Impacts, has significantly contributed to all of that by promoting more diversified, sustainable and resilient agricultural production systems that can lead to a range of ecosystem service improvements, while at the same time results in win-win situations with more secure revenues for farmers and food securities. Let me assure you that we will further build on the results that you have achieved in the framework of Horizon Europe with other actions to come, in which probably many of you will also be involved in the future. In Horizon Europe, large initiatives, such as, you know, the new partnerships that will come along, will help to deliver on the mentioned EU ambitions through concerted research and innovation efforts with the member states and associated countries, the private sector and other stakeholders. Among the 49 candidate partnerships that have been proposed for the period of 21 and 24 for the whole of Horizon Europe, we have the one that is very close to our heart and ambitions, and what we talk about also in your projects, which is accelerating farming transitions, systems transition, agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures. We have proposed this partnership because we believe that agroecology can provide a very powerful contribution to long-term responses to the climate, biodiversity, environmental, economic and social challenges that our society is facing. And in in fact, the Green Deal has identified agroecology as one of the sustainable approaches that can help the EU in its efforts to respect planetary boundaries and in response to increasing consumers' demands for healthy, pesticide-free and nutritious food. So DiverImpacts, together with other Horizon 2020 projects, has contributed to the preparation of this partnership, and as we move into preparing the partnership's strategic research and innovation agenda, we will continue to count on your findings and recommendations in order to identify the key research and innovation needs to be addressed under the partnership. And this is certainly good that it directly feeds into more action that we have at hand and concrete actions that we're preparing together. We are convinced that this will enhance the impact on the ground, and I look very much forward to close cooperation, and I wish you all today an enjoyable and productive final conference. Great to have a physical one. There is much more to discuss and much more work ahead of us, so enough of the introductory words from our side. Congratulations and good continuation. Thanks a lot.
If you are there, I think that you have already go through, and we will win a little time. Now we will have the general introductions by Antoine Messéan. Antoine Messéan is a coordinator of our project that you many of you well known, and is a research manager at the French National Institute for Agriculture, Food and Environment in RAE. Antoine has a background in agronomy and has been coordinating multi-actor and interdisciplinary projects about innovations in plant productions, in pest management and crop diversifications. He's the coordinator of our project, but also the spearheader of the collaborations between 6 EU-funded projects about crop diversifications, and this group is the crop diversification clusters. Antoine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Didier. Thank you, Jean-Pierre and Christine, for your introduction. I think you already put the challenges on the table, and so I'm very pleased to welcome you here. It's a strange place with plenty of dinosaurs, and to some extent, when my main message. Is it working? Ah, okay, I need closer. My main message is, would be that we are also kind of dinosaurs, and that we need to change the way we are practicing what we do in everyday life. So I will try to speed up and just give you a flavor of what we will be discussing today. First message is that we have been discussing about agroecological transitions, and DiverImpact is about crop diversification. But crop diversification is a key pillar of agroecology. So in DiverImpact, we have been focusing on specific area for crop diversification, so intercropping, rotations, multiple cropping, and why this is closely linked. But what I see very good with crop diversification is that everybody, farmers, understand. They might not understand what is agroecology, might be complex, but crop diversification, they do practice, more or less, but at least they know what we are talking about, we as scientists. And that's the same for all stakeholders. And of course, it was said that crop diversification is a mean to reach the farm to fork targets. And here you've got in this slide a recent paper on meta-analysis on the impacts of agricultural diversifications on various ecosystem services, soil fertility, carbon storage, or climate regulations. And what we see is that this, at large, agricultural diversifications has a positive effect. There's also some trade-off and some negative effects. And among agricultural diversification, crop diversification plays a specific role. And this has been further analyzed in DiverImpact, and you've got the results of a meta-analysis where we have been zooming in the crop diversification with agroforestries, we've got rotations, intercroppings, and the effect, both on ecosystem services and on productivity. So in principle, it's possible to maintain productivity even increase productivity, productions, while reducing negative impacts of agriculture. But in fact, it's not what we observe out there. And our systems in Europe are still very much specialized. Here you've got this cumulative share of the first 5 crops in various countries. We see that it's quite high, so the level of the 5, it's around 70%, but it has not changed a lot. So, why? Despite the benefits, crop diversification is still not adopted. And that's what we have been addressing. So first, and I won't get into details, we will discuss that later on, is that it's really due to the fact that it's not just about crop diversification, so to come with diversified system, because you will see there is a great variability. We also have this trade-off sometimes between the environment and economics. And also, main point is that you need to adapt your diversified system. It's not just to claim that we move from conventional to diversified systems. And also, secondly, the second main reason is that because crop diversification is hindered by a series of barriers at all levels, technological, organizational, institutional, along value chain. And this was already, we knew that before we started Diver Impacts with, for example, these studies from Mena et al., where we identified these barriers to introductions of monocrop. And it has been further addressed, and later on today we will get in this aspect. So we've got barriers. So it's not, the point is not to demonstrate that we have crop diversification has benefits. It's how we can convert those potential benefits into practice in every farmer's farm. And then this is why we have, oh, sorry. Okay, so that's the theoretical framework I've been using, the so-called multi-level perspectives, where these barriers are due to the fact that our agriculture has been organized over the last 50 years around the conventions. Everything, research has been supporting major crops, regulations, policy, value chains, everything has been organized. And therefore, when you want to change, it's really difficult. And therefore, the rationale of Diver Impact is both to develop through case studies these niches and try to unlock the system, but also to make recommendations to what we call destabilize the regime. And that's why we came up with propositions for policy. And that's why this one conference is very much not about scientific results, but to discuss recommendations with you, stakeholders. And yeah, so the objectives of Diver Impacts depart from that. And of course, it's a big challenge. It needs to joint efforts and over time. That's why we have been working with other EU projects dealing with crop diversification. So you know most of them that by chance were funded at the same time, and we have been working together. So again, now, so it's not just to move from one system to another system. So we acknowledge that systems are dynamic, so we start from the existing practices. Systems might already be partially diversified, and we look for how we can improve through additional diversifications. And so this idea of dynamics has been translated into the field experiments and the 10 field experiments and 25 multi-actor case studies. And of course, the motivations for diversifying are very diverse. So it could be to increase protein autonomy, it could be to solve a technical impasse, or it could be to create new outlets for the market, for consumers. And that would be the pictures I would like you to take on. So we don't start from one given systems and to end up with a diverse system. Sometimes we are very much prescriptive, say, okay, we need to change, so to move to a new kind of agriculture. No, it's more complex, it's dynamic, and so we don't know where we are going to. And of course, after 5 years or after 10 years, it will be the same. So it's never ending, because you need to adapt to local conditions, and also, most important, we need to adapt to the evolving over time. So climate change, market, consumer demands evolve. So you anytime need, and that's what you need. We need to acknowledge in the research area and the social technical systems at large. So through approaches, tools to support action and to help actors drive their own pathway towards sustainable agri-food systems. And of course, for research and development, this is a big challenge. So now we have to deal with more complex systems. So we need to cover the systems at large, and we are not used to do that. We need to be action-driven, and so to work with actors, to accompany them through tools, and also change the way we have been working. For example, with these on-station experiments, which were supposed to come up with a nice way of doing farming, and then to disseminate such. It's not anymore the case, but we are still working in that way. We are, as I said, we are kind of still dinosaurs in that sense. And project governance, so networking flexibility, we will address that. And of course, at the end, a new vision of system efficiency. So it's not the point to optimize. And what we have been doing so far. Each component, productions, supply chains, have been optimizing component. And this is one we are still looking. At least that's our statement. So I'm going to finish. That's why, as I said, you have in your package those policy briefs that have already been published so far, and that will be, of course, presented more in detail now. And we have also some more to come, especially on the training and educations and policy, which are not yet ready and will be published after this conference. So today, so going back to what we have been doing, so it's not to demonstrate, it's to, the first session will address in the which conditions, which are the ingredients to for successful crop diversification. We will address the barriers. We will address also how we can support actors in their dynamic pathway, and also how policy can support, because it is one of the major. So far, the policy has been supporting and still very much supporting the conventional systems. So, and it makes sense when people say, okay, no, we cannot diversify because it's not profitable. Everything has been organized around conventional systems. So we need to change that, and we need to change it now. And multi-actors and system approach, and of course we will look forward during a roundtable this afternoon. And so, two messages to end is that we all need to change our practice, and quickly. So it's urgent. So Kirsten said we only have 8 years to go, and we are still discussing and making research, and we really need to speed up the project. I think it's a challenge for all of us, and not just research, but including research. And of course, and I don't call it the final conference, because it's not the, we just have made a tiny road so far, and we still, so it's not the end of the story, but it's just the beginning of the long journey. So you will have to take on board the outcomes and continue on this pathway. So thank you to all those who have been organizing, of course, Didier and Sylvain, team, and the session conveners. And now I think I will leave the floor to Romain to introduce the first session.
Yes. So, well, thank you, Antoine, for the introduction. And now we will move on to hear more in details about the work done in the Diver Impact project, and start with the first session on interconnecting different diversification strategies to enhance ecosystem services, and how far must we go. So it is coordinated by Genael Helou and Raj Shantam Imam. So Genael Helou is a professor in agronomy at the Institute of Higher Education of Research in agriculture, western part of France, in Angers. So she's part of the LEVA unit research, and for the past 20 years she has focused her research on crop diversification and especially on the role of legume and intercropping for the design of cropping system to less dependence to herbicides and fertilizers. And Raj Shuntam Iman is a teacher in agronomy and researcher on cropping system ecology at the Department of Biosystem and Technology at the Swedish University of Agriculture. He's originally from India, and his personal research interests are on crop and farm management strategy to address climate change, loss of farmland biodiversity, and to reduce dependency on external inputs. Well, Genaëlle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roman. Good morning, everybody. So, in this session, we will be at the cropping system level, and we will focus on crop diversification, seen as a diversity of strategies to be combined in systems and adaptive approach to reach different services. And the objective of this session is to show what are the ingredients for successful diversified systems based on the experiences from Diver Impact. After this first overview, we'll have two testimonies from field experiment leaders from Sweden and Netherlands. They will share with you their innovative systems, and two testimonies and feedbacks from case studies and regional conferences to share also with you key messages after these regional conferences held a few months ago. So to start this session, it's important to say that crop diversification is not a unique solution, it's a diversity of strategies. It's possible to diversify in time a cropping system with a diversity of species in a crop sequence by adding new cash crops, of course, but also the addition of cover crops between main crops, and also the use of multiple cropping, which is growing of several species within a growing season. But it's also possible to diversify a cropping system in space, and this spatial diversification is less used in current systems in Europe. It consists on using intercropping, which is the growing of two or more species together in the same field, with different design, row cropping or strip cropping or relay cropping, when two species are not necessarily sown and harvested together. So we can find here some intercrops in the sequences, for example, with cereal and legumes together in the same field, instead of using only soil crops in the crop sequences. So the idea is to combine different strategies to build such diversified systems, and of course also to reduce inputs, fertilizers and pesticides with this higher level of diversification. So in Diver Impact we combine temporal and spatial diversification, usually studied separately, with different pathways according to the local context and depending also on the starting point. We have a network of 10 field experiments in 7 countries with around 100 crop sequences covering this range of temporal and spatial diversification, both in conventional and organic systems. So in simplified systems, different risks can occur. We have already explained this in the introduction. We can expect high yields, of course, but a high dependence on inputs, with problems concerning these inputs, with the variability of the prices and also the availability of these inputs. And these systems are also sensitive to extreme events such as severe drought. And another risk is, of course, the negative environmental impacts associated to this high level of fertilizers and pesticides. We have also risk in organic situations, even if we have usually a higher level of diversification in organic systems. But in these systems we have low and variable yields, and systems very sensitive to biotic factors such as weeds, which are also difficult to manage. So the idea is to imagine new systems, but these systems have to face different challenges. They have to provide high level of yields, to be less dependent on inputs, and to have lower environmental impact. So the question is it possible to reach these challenges with crop diversifications, and what are the ingredients for a successful crop diversification? So I will give 3 examples from our network, and to explain that whatever the starting point, it's possible to design diversified systems which are able to improve different services. So here you have a first example starting from maize monoculture and what is possible to obtain through the diversification, through temporal diversification here. So it's possible to reduce inputs and greenhouse gas emissions per 30% here, and to improve growth margin by 25% in this example. Another example here for an organic situation started with already diversified system in time, but the new system has a higher level of diversification by the addition of partial diversification and a higher proportion of legumes in this system. And also here, positive impacts, very positive impacts, a high reduction of nitrogen inputs, greenhouse gas emissions, and a high increase for energy yield and growth margin. The third example in a conventional system starting already with a high level of temporal diversification, and in this current system we have also already intercrops in the systems, but the idea is to increase all criteria in the new system. And it also